Just to give you an idea of what Mezimbite Forest Centre does, we are effectively a practical research institution, but one which runs as a business, and its purpose is to actually develop and provide models for real sustainable development, whereby we create new value chains, new value within the forest, with forest people, so that there's a real incentive to look after what is in that forest. So I take the broader term of wood to mean trees and forest and all that is in it. And basically what we're going to try and examine now is how we have developed a specific product and a specific value chain based on a traditional set of uses, not just one use, but a set of uses for a diverse amount of different things that come from within the forest, and how that contributes to a new economy for a group of people who have been previously quite severely marginalized. Just to give you some idea of the problems that we face, like everybody else, massive problem of fuel wood, massive problem of burning, massive problem of exportation of timber. Those of you who were with us in China, you may have noticed there, approximately 2 million cubic meters of timber, all of which are considered hongmu by the Chinese market, are exported annually from Mozambique, which is way not sustainable. The program that I have looked at here is to try and change that to be able to export substantially less. That's just an aerial shot of one of the craft centers that we run at Mezimbite. We make almost everything out of trees that you can imagine at Mezimbite. This is an environmental education center in Gorongosa National Park, and all the wooden components are made by us. We're very close by. Prize-winning piece of furniture, designed in Daba 2 years ago. People working, making bits and pieces. Somebody was talking about inlay, people were talking about marquetry. We've got it, we do it. But most important is generating a culture that should you make a substantial amount more money in the way in which you use your trees, you start to put it back. And that's the key piece of what we're doing, is incentivize conservation, but also actually practically do it. These are, again, this massive range of products and use of things. You're starting to look now as the scale of the timber has changed from building big buildings to some furniture, to bits and pieces, all sorts of practical things in terms of repair of pieces of timber, using smaller pieces, decorating surface, doing production runs. All of these things have tremendous value in terms of timber being improved. But now let's look at something else and say, what else do we have in this? One of the products that we played with has been the making of wooden jewelry. In 2005, we were selected to do a minority report for the World Trade Organization on the export policy for Mozambique on timber. And in our minority report, we spent all the money on actually proving the point that Mozambicans are perfectly capable of making extremely high-value product that can be exported to a market rather than selling that. Now, in 2005, we took that wooden jewelry to Paris Fashion Week. The following year, we were on the front cover of Vogue magazine, and the following year after that, we were voted one of the top fashion accessories in New York Fashion Week. That exposure was put in a book called Nature by Design by a woman called Summer Rain Oakes, who became very involved in Mezimbite. And she suggested we look at making body care products as well. This comes to the bit about traditional use. There are a number of trees in the Miombo biome which are traditionally used in order to make personal care products. Moisturizers. You live in the tropics, you need moisturizer. It's the most important thing. You need heel balm in winter because it's cold as hell. You need insect repellents. You make soap. All of these things are really important. And we decided that we would tackle that, and we would try and tackle that in a way entirely with our own materials. So if you look at the first thing that we had, well, we're in Miombo woodland. We have bees. Okay? We have bees. From bees we get wax. Wax is a very traditional component in lots and lots and lots of personal care products. We have a number of natural oils, principal amongst which are baobab and marula, which are currently used by people like Body Shop in their formulations, and one called Mafura butter, which is Trichelia metica, for anybody who cares. We also traditionally grow sesame, and sesame has an extremely high vitamin E content. Vitamin E is used in personal care products and oil products as the preservative. So you don't have to buy some chemical garbage and pump the stuff full of parabens. You can use what you grow. We also make a number of essential oils. So if you look at that, we had all the ingredients which are all used traditionally. Everybody, when we said, let's go and look for Mafura, they said, yeah, we know the tree, we know what it is, let's show, this is how we use it. We also had the backing of a group called Phytotrade in Africa. Phytotrade is an organization which encourages the use of non-timber forest products within the Miombo biome, which effectively is the dry tropics of southern Africa. It covers an area of 11 countries, and it's much bigger than the wet tropics. Yeah, so we had their backing to help us get going. But the big problem now was, what do we do with packaging? We're in the middle of nowhere. You know, I put money on it, there's not a single person in the room that can point to Mezimbite on the map. Never mind who can point to Mozambique or Beira. And unfortunately, the shipping companies have the same knowledge as you do. So we examined a number of different things, but we had some problems. If we make, for example, a lip balm, and we take a little labello stick or a lip ice or one of those things, it's made out of plastic, which is not recyclable, which is not degradable, okay? And it is made in China with an awkward importation set of bureaucracy and massive logistics. We then looked at another competitor, Burt's Bees. They have a little tin. Now, the little tin is actually rather nice because you can actually reuse it and refill it if you want to. It is also a material that is recyclable, but it is also made in China with the same problem of how do we get it from China back to Mozambique. Then we looked at some other stuff made in China in terms of some recyclable plastics, which we were quite impressed with. And we looked into Austria and France, who make glass packaging. And when we started looking at glass packaging, we realized that in the packaging industry and in the high care and high value industry of personal care, people spend ridiculous amounts on packaging. Most of you probably don't realize that when you buy a bottle of perfume, 60% of the cost at factory gate is the advertising and marketing. 30% is the packaging. 9% is the general administration of the thing, and 1% is the perfume. So we had a look at that, and we said, well, okay, well, let's look at something that we can do. We looked at the glass stuff, and I was really impressed. But what I also discovered is we have the same problem. How on earth am I going to move something from Austria or France, which is very beautiful, which is very appropriate, which is recyclable, reusable, at a decent price? And I decided we just couldn't do it. So I said, well, what materials do we have available? And the choices are amongst the high-density timbers that the Miombo has. And we isolated a list of timbers which were high density and which also had very low pores and whose cell structure was such that they would not actually transfer the oils of the product out of the container. So some of the high-density timbers will actually act as a vessel rather than act to transfer, rather than act as a container. The first one that we had is Palpretto or Dalbergia melanoxylon. Most of you know that, colored black. And what's interesting here is we already make the blanks for musical instruments, for clarinets and oboes. So we had a big heap of offcuts. So there was a material base that we had. The second one was Mezimbite, which is what the place which I run is called, and it's named after an area which was a stand of Mezimbite destroyed about 100 years ago for the making of railway sleepers. The fun thing is that a couple of years ago, the railway sleepers were replaced with concrete, and we got them all back. So the few of you who have a little gold-colored container in your hand, that is Mezimbite, and it was a railway sleeper 100 years ago. Okay, then the next one, so that's a recycled product. The next one, Matasha, which is pink to red, that's Bashimia discolor, and that also is an offcut mainly from the use in parquet flooring. Makungu, which is Acacia nigrensis, which is brown, and that we use a lot for garden furniture with a tremendously high durability and a small amount of turnings. And the Mapani, Calophyspirma mapani, also red, very, very dense. We got most of ours we got as timber recovered, which had been illegally logged by Chinese companies. Combretum imberbe, which is a high-value timber. It is grey. Offcuts mainly from manufacture of components going to China again, but this time for manufacture of Buddhist altarpieces. And Songololo Swartzimadagascarensis, which is also red and is from offcuts of very high-value furniture. Interesting as well is we do have a tradition of turning, and we have a tradition of wooden vessels. Mozambique has pretty lousy clay, so lousy ceramics. Now there's a trick in this little object that you have, and that is that it is wood. How do you make a wooden object that the lid doesn't fall off? Now, if you saw on Victoria's slides, when she is examining and identifying wood, she looks at the 3 axes of how it works. Now, when you design something made of wood that is round, that you want to close, you have to examine the 3 axes. Okay, and you'll notice that the 3 axes have different coefficients of expansion and shrinkage. Okay. So the coefficient of expansion and shrinkage, which is of particular importance, are the difference between the radial and the tangential shrinkage. So if you take that little vessel that is in your hands and you open it, you will actually find it closes, and it closes with a little twist. And the reason is it's not round. We turn the wood when it is partially still wet, and we've got to calculate at exactly the right time to turn it so that we then shrink it. And because of the difference in the tangential and the radial shrinkage, it's no longer round, it's oval. And the 2 ovals lock. So it gives you a leak-proof container. So you've actually taken now all of this traditional knowledge and all the rest of it. You can have a little party. That's in the wrong place, but never mind. It's a little jewelry box. This is also in the wrong place. There's some of the bees. But the whole idea of this is that what you've done is you've taken all sorts of different components of the tree, all of which already have traditional indicators because people already use it. People already do this stuff, and you've now adapted it to a new use that you can actually distribute and sell at a very, very high value. So those guys, instead of being dressed in rags and battling to feed their kids, are there. Again, I'll just close with the issue of everything you take out, you put back. That's just one of my neighbors. Yeah, I think I'll stop.